I was halfway through dinner when my phone buzzed on the table. Mark was talking about his new project at work, and I smiled politely, pretending to listen as I reached for my phone. But the second I looked at the screen, I froze. The message said, "Leave now. You're not safe." I stared at it for a full 5 seconds, waiting for my brain to make sense of what I was seeing. The message was from Emily Parker, my best friend since college, the same Emily whose funeral I had attended 2 years ago. My hand started shaking. I showed it to Mark across the table. "Look at this," I whispered. He glanced at it and frowned. "That's sick. Someone's using her number?" But I wasn't so sure. Her name flashed on the screen exactly how it used to. Same number, same profile photo, the one I'd never deleted from my contacts. It wasn't spoofed or unknown. It was her. The air in the room felt heavy. I couldn't hear the rain anymore outside the window or the ticking of the kitchen clock, just the faint hum of the refrigerator and my heart pounding. "Mark, this can't be real," I said. "You saw it. It's her number." He tried to laugh it off. "It's probably some scammer. They recycle numbers all the time." But Emily's number had been disconnected. I knew because I had tried calling it on her birthday last year, just to hear her voicemail one last time, and it hadn't gone through. Before I could say another word, the phone buzzed again. Another message appeared, and my breath caught in my throat. "Don't go to the basement." I looked at Mark. "Why would someone say that?" He frowned. "It's just a prank, Sarah. Someone's trying to scare you." But deep down, I could feel it. Something wasn't right. I had never told anyone about the basement. Not the fact that I hated going down there. Not the way it made me feel watched every time I passed the door. That night, everything changed. And before it was over, I would learn that Emily had never really left me, stay with me till the end, because what started as a simple dinner turned into something I'll never forget. And before we begin, make sure to subscribe to my channel and comment where you're watching from, because you're about to hear a story that proves some friendships don't end, even after death. My name is Sarah Blake, and 2 years ago, I buried my best friend. Emily Parker was the kind of person who lit up every room she entered. She was loud, fearless, and always looking out for everyone else. We met in college and became inseparable. She called me her sister from another life. When Emily died in a hit and run, I felt like part of me was buried with her. The driver was never caught, and her case went cold. I told myself I had to move on, but I never really did. Not when I still dreamed about her. Not when I still reached for my phone to text her whenever something big happened. Now, 2 years later, I had a new life. A good one, at least on paper. I was married to Mark, a civil engineer who was calm where I was restless. We'd recently bought a house outside Seattle, a fixer-upper with peeling paint and an unfinished basement. I told myself it was a fresh start, but I hadn't realized how much the past can follow you, no matter where you go. That night had started so normal. It was raining lightly outside, the kind of soft, steady rain that makes you feel safe. Mark and I had just sat down to dinner. He was talking about his team at work, and I was only half listening, scrolling through my phone under the table. That's when the text came in. "Leave now. You're not safe." I remember every second after that. My skin went cold. The hair on my arms stood up. I felt the same fear I had the night I got the call about Emily's accident. The same drop in my stomach, the same disbelief. Mark tried to laugh it off, but I couldn't. My instincts screamed that this was more than a prank. Emily wouldn't hurt me, and no stranger would know her name, her number, or, especially, not about the basement. "Mark, maybe we should just leave for the night," I said quietly. He frowned. "You're letting a random text scare you?" "It's probably kids messing around," but I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't as calm as he pretended to be. The tension in the air was thick, like the calm before a storm. I opened my phone again, scrolling through old messages from Emily. The last one was from the night before she died. It said, "I found something big. Can't talk right now, but I'll call tomorrow." She never got the chance. I'd deleted most of our conversations after her death, but that one message stayed. And now, 2 years later, another message had arrived, from her. The exact same tone, the same urgency. I sat there staring at my phone while Mark finished his meal, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But the feeling in my chest kept growing. The more I tried to ignore it, the stronger it got. When we moved into this house, I told Mark the basement gave me a bad feeling. It wasn't something I could explain. It was just instinct. But he'd brushed it off, saying, "Every old house creaks a little." Now that old fear came rushing back. My hands were still trembling when Mark stood up to take the dishes to the sink. And then, without warning, the power flickered. The lights dimmed. The TV shut off. Mark sighed. "Great, the breaker again. I'll go check it." I jumped up. "No, wait." He turned back, confused. "Sarah, it's just the fuse box." My voice was shaking. "Please don't go down there." He smiled to calm me, like I was a child afraid of thunder. "I'll be right back." As he walked toward the basement door, I could feel my heart pounding so hard it hurt. My phone was still in my hand, the screen glowing faintly in the dark. I looked down just as Mark reached for the handle. A new text appeared. "He's not alone." My throat went dry. "Mark!" I screamed. But the basement door had already closed behind him. The moment the basement door closed, an eerie stillness filled the house. I stood frozen, phone clutched tightly in my hand, staring at the glowing message on the screen. "He's not alone." The words pulsed in my head like an alarm. My first instinct was to yell again, but my voice caught in my throat. Every sound seemed magnified. The creak of the floorboards, the faint hum of the refrigerator, even the steady patter of rain outside. I called out, "Mark, are you okay?" My voice sounded small against the silence that followed. No answer. I tried again, louder this time. "Mark, please answer me." Still nothing. My pulse quickened. The only light came from the faint flicker of candles on the table, their shadows stretching across the walls. My mind raced. Was it a prank? A hacker? Or something far worse? I opened my phone and stared at Emily's name on the screen. My hands trembled as I typed back, "Who is this?" "What do you mean?" The message failed to send. No service. My signal bar had vanished completely. A faint sound came from below, something metallic scraping against the concrete. I took a step closer to the basement door, straining to listen. There it was again, followed by a low thud, like something heavy being moved. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. "Mark, I'm serious. Say something," I shouted. Finally, his voice came, but it sounded distant, muffled. "It's fine. Just a shelf fell over." I exhaled, but my relief was short-lived. I could tell by his tone that something wasn't fine. It was too shaky, too forced. Mark was the kind of man who could fix anything. He didn't sound afraid easily. Something about that voice didn't sound like him at all. Against every instinct screaming at me to stay put, I reached for the basement door. The old brass handle was cold under my palm. I pushed it open just a few inches, and the smell hit me first. A damp, stale scent like wet concrete and dust. I could see the top of the stairs, swallowed in darkness. The light switch was just inside the door. My hand shook as I reached for it, flicking it twice. Nothing. Dead. My phone buzzed again. I nearly dropped it. The message read, "Don't go down there." I stumbled back, gripping the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. My mouth went dry. "Emily," I whispered. "What's happening?" I wanted to believe it was a coincidence, some automated message or delayed text. But how could that explain the timing? How could it explain her name showing up, her number working again, 2 years after she was gone? I backed away slowly from the door, my mind torn between reason and terror. I grabbed the cordless phone on the counter and tried dialing 911, but the line was dead, just a soft clicking noise. Then, from below, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Not heavy ones, but slow and deliberate, one after another, echoing up the stairs. I froze, staring into the black stairwell. "Mark?" I called out again, barely above a whisper. The footsteps stopped. For a few seconds, everything went silent. Then a voice came from below, low and strange. "Sarah?" My heart dropped. It sounded like Mark, but something in the tone was off, muted, hollow, as if someone else was mimicking him. "I'm coming up," the voice said. I took a step back. Every part of me screamed to run, but my legs felt heavy. Then the door creaked open slightly, as if nudged from below. I gasped and slammed it shut, locking it with shaking hands. My breath came out in ragged bursts as I backed into the kitchen. That's when I noticed the window beside the table, half open, rain blowing in. I hadn't opened it. Mark hadn't either. The curtain fluttered with each gust of wind, and for the first time, I noticed something on the sill, a single muddy handprint. My entire body went cold. I grabbed my keys and rushed to the front door, but as I turned the handle, my phone buzzed again. A new message flashed across the screen. "He's behind you." I spun around so fast I nearly fell. The living room was empty. The hallway was dark. My reflection in the mirror by the door showed only me, wide-eyed, terrified, trembling. "Sarah!" A shout came from behind the basement door, loud and urgent this time. "It's me! Open up!" I froze. It was Mark's real voice now, or at least it sounded like it. "Prove it's you!" I yelled. There was silence for a beat. Then he said, "Your middle name's Elaine. You hate red wine, and you cried when we got the house key stuck in the lock on move-in day." Relief washed over me. It was him. I rushed to unlock the door, but as I did, the phone buzzed again in my hand. One more message. "That's not Mark." My hand hovered over the lock. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I didn't know who to believe anymore, the voice I loved or the friend I'd buried. From behind the door, Mark shouted again, desperate now. "Sarah, open the door." My phone slipped slightly in my sweaty grip. My mind screamed in panic. What if Emily was right? What if something or someone had come up those stairs that wasn't my husband? The knob turned from the other side, and as I backed away, clutching the phone, one thought echoed in my head, stronger than all the others. Emily's warning wasn't a ghost story. It was a rescue. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely keep hold of the phone. The metal doorknob rattled again, harder this time, as the voice on the other side grew more desperate. "Sarah, open the door. It's me." The sound of Mark's voice used to calm me, but now every word made my skin crawl. Something in my gut told me not to move. Every instinct screamed that I was in danger, that whatever stood behind that door wasn't my husband. My heart pounded so violently I thought I might faint. I took one slow step backward, then another, clutching the phone like a lifeline. I stared at the door and whispered to myself, "If you're really Mark, you'd have the house key." Silence. Then the knocking stopped. The quiet was worse than the noise. It pressed on my ears, made the house feel alive. I waited, holding my breath. Finally, a different sound echoed from behind the door, footsteps retreating down the stairs, slow, deliberate, each one heavier than the last. I exhaled shakily. The phone buzzed again. A new message appeared on the screen. "Call for help. Use the landline in the bedroom." My stomach dropped. How could Emily know there was a phone in the bedroom? We had barely unpacked. Even I'd forgotten it was there. I looked toward the hallway leading to the bedroom. It was dark, shadows stretching across the floor from the flickering candlelight in the dining room. The thought of walking down that hall felt like walking into a tunnel I might not come out of, but staying where I was felt worse. I forced my legs to move. My steps were quiet, careful, as if the floor might betray me. Every creak made my chest tighten. When I finally reached the bedroom door, I paused. The faint glow from the streetlight outside slipped through the window blinds, casting thin lines of light across the room. The old landline sat on the nightstand, dusty and unused. I picked it up and held my breath as I pressed the numbers for 911. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then a faint dial tone. Relief flooded through me. But before I could speak, a sound came from the hallway, soft, almost imperceptible, like someone dragging their fingers along the wall. "Sarah!" It was Mark's voice again, but it wasn't coming from the basement anymore. It was closer. I froze with the phone halfway to my ear. "Sarah, please, open the door." My voice trembled. I can't. Stay where you are." He didn't answer. The footsteps grew louder, steady, measured. I could see a faint shadow moving under the door, pacing slowly back and forth. Then the power came back on. The lights flickered to life, and for a split second, everything looked normal, too normal. I could see the hallway now, empty, no shadow, no figure, just silence. I turned back to the phone, still dead in my hand. The dial tone was gone. My pulse hammered as I put it down and looked at my cell again. One new message. He's inside the house. I backed toward the corner of the room, scanning every inch. My mind raced. What if someone had broken in? What if this wasn't supernatural at all, but something worse? A real intruder who'd been hiding here for days. I grabbed a small lamp from the nightstand, holding it like a weapon, and whispered, "Emily, please help me." Then another sound. A door creaking open somewhere near the kitchen. My breath caught. I heard slow footsteps crossing the living room. The house had never felt so big or so full of hiding places. I decided to make a run for it. The front door was only 20 feet away. I gripped my phone, crouched low, and crept toward the hall. My bare feet moved silently over the wood. When I reached the edge of the kitchen, I stopped and peeked around the corner. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, my eyes caught a faint movement. A figure standing near the dining table, back turned to me. Broad shoulders, same height as Mark. He was staring down at something on the table, completely still. "Mark?" I whispered. The figure didn't move. I took another step forward, my heart racing. "Mark, please answer me." Slowly, the figure turned its head, just enough for the light to catch its face. It was Mark, but his expression was blank, his eyes unfocused, as if he wasn't really there. His shirt was torn, a streak of dirt down his arm. "Mark," I said softly, "what happened to you?" He blinked, then tilted his head slightly, almost curious. "Sarah?" His voice cracked. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. I looked down. "Run." The sound of the message tone seemed to snap him out of his daze. His head jerked toward me sharply, eyes wide, pupils dilated. For a split second, I didn't recognize the man I married. He stepped forward. "Who are you texting?" His tone was off, cold, almost unfamiliar. "No one," I said, backing away. "Don't lie to me," he said, taking another step. I bolted toward the door. He lunged, grabbing my wrist, but I twisted away and ran. My feet hit the wood floor hard as I sprinted to the front door. My fingers fumbled with the lock. Behind me, Mark shouted something I couldn't make out. I finally got the door open and burst into the rain-soaked night. I didn't stop running until I reached the edge of the driveway. My phone buzzed one last time as I turned back toward the house, chest heaving, drenched from the storm. The message read, "He isn't your husband." I stood there, trembling, staring at the house, its windows glowing faintly from the storm outside. The truth hit me like a punch. Whatever was inside that house, whatever wore my husband's face, it wasn't Mark. And Emily, somehow, was the only one trying to save me. The rain fell harder as I stood on the edge of the driveway, drenched and trembling. My breath came in ragged gasps, fogging the cold night air. Behind me, the house loomed like a shadow, its windows glowing faintly from the dim kitchen light. Every instinct screamed for me to keep running, to get as far away from that place as possible. But I couldn't. My husband, if that thing was still my husband, was inside, and Emily's messages hadn't stopped. She was trying to tell me something, and I wasn't leaving until I understood what it was. I gripped my phone tightly, the screen flickering with rain. The last message still glowed against the glass. "He isn't your husband." My mind spun, trying to make sense of it. If that wasn't Mark, then where was he? The thought hit me like lightning. What if the real Mark was hurt, or worse, somewhere in that house? I swallowed hard, forcing my shaking body to move. I crept back toward the porch, every step crunching on the wet gravel. The front door was still wide open, the warm light spilling into the rain. I could hear faint movement inside, slow, uneven footsteps, and something dragging softly against the floor. I slipped my phone into my pocket and picked up the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, a heavy metal flashlight from the porch table. My hands trembled as I tightened my grip around it. The wooden steps creaked under my feet as I stepped back into the house. Water dripped from my hair onto the floor. The air inside was cold and still, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and a steady dripping sound coming from somewhere deeper inside. "Mark?" My voice shook. If you're here, please answer me. Silence. Then, from the direction of the basement door, I heard it. 3 slow knocks. I froze. My stomach twisted into knots. The door was still closed, but the sound was unmistakable. Someone, or something, was behind it. I stepped closer, raising the flashlight. The metal felt slick in my hand. The knocks came again, louder this time. Then a muffled voice. Weak, desperate. Sarah, please, help me. My heart jumped. That was Mark's real voice. I would have known it anywhere. I rushed forward and pressed my ear against the door. Mark, it's me. Are you okay? His voice came again, hoarse and broken. It's not me upstairs. Don't let it touch you. The words sent chills shooting down my spine. My grip on the flashlight tightened until my knuckles turned white. I whispered through the door, "Hold on, I'll get you out." I spun around and looked toward the kitchen where the basement key hung on a small hook. But before I could reach it, the floorboards behind me creaked. I froze. Turning slowly, the figure stood at the end of the hallway, tall, still, its face half hidden in shadow. It looked exactly like Mark, the same dark hair, the same gray t-shirt, the same tired eyes. But there was something wrong with how he stood, too straight, too still, like his body didn't quite belong to him. "Sarah," he said softly, his voice calm and almost gentle. "Why are you scared of me?" I backed away slowly. "Because you're not Mark." He tilted his head slightly, a faint, unnatural smile curling across his lips. "You think your dead friend knows better than your husband?" The mention of Emily's name made my skin prickle. "How do you know about her?" He laughed, a low, cold sound that didn't sound human. "Because she told me. Down there." He pointed toward the basement door. "She never stopped talking." My throat tightened. "You're lying." "Am I?" he said, taking a step forward. "You've been seeing things that aren't real for years, haven't you? Dreaming about her, hearing her voice. Maybe you wanted this. Maybe you wanted her to come back." I shook my head. "No, you don't get to twist this. She was my best friend, and you, whatever you are, don't speak for her." He moved closer, his expression darkening. "You shouldn't have opened her messages." Then, without warning, the lights flickered violently and went out. The entire house plunged into darkness. I screamed and swung the flashlight wildly, its beam cutting through the dark as I stumbled backward. The beam landed on his face for a split second, and what I saw made my blood run cold. His skin rippled, his features shifting as if something beneath the surface was trying to break free. I bolted for the basement door. My fingers found the key on the hook, fumbling to fit it into the lock. Behind me, footsteps thundered across the floor. I turned the key and yanked the door open, just as something cold brushed against my shoulder. I stumbled down the stairs, slamming the door behind me. The beam from the flashlight cut through the darkness, and there, chained to one of the support beams, was Mark, his real face. Pale, bruised, terrified. "Sarah," he croaked. "Run." I rushed to his side, fumbling with the chain around his wrist. "Who did this to you?" Before he could answer, a loud crash echoed above us. The door at the top of the stairs splintered, and I heard heavy footsteps descending. Mark's voice broke. "It wears faces, Sarah. It's not human." I freed his wrist, and we both turned toward the staircase. The light flickered across the steps as something moved into view, a shape, still shifting, parts of its body flickering like a shadow that didn't belong to the light. I lifted the flashlight and threw it. The bulb shattered, plunging the room into total darkness. For a moment, the only sound was the creature's distorted breathing and the pounding of our hearts. Then Emily's voice came, clear and strong, echoing from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Now, run!" The basement window burst open with a gust of cold wind, and without thinking, Mark and I scrambled toward it. We climbed out just as the thing lunged, its hand grabbing at the frame. For 1 second, I saw its face clearly in the lightning flash. It was a perfect blend of both of ours, twisted into something grotesque and smiling. We collapsed outside in the mud, gasping for air as the storm raged. When I turned back toward the house, the window slammed shut. Inside, everything went still again. The lights flickered once more, then went dark completely. Mark pulled me close, his voice shaking. "We need to call the police." I nodded, clutching my phone. But when I looked at the screen, there was one final message waiting for me. "It's over now. You're safe. The sender, Emily Parker." Tears filled my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. And as lightning flashed across the sky, I could have sworn I saw her reflection in the glass, smiling, at peace, watching over us one last time. The storm had finally passed by the time the police arrived. Red and blue lights reflected across the wet pavement, flashing against the trees and the soaked grass in front of our house. I sat on the back of an ambulance wrapped in a gray blanket, my hands trembling as an officer asked me questions. My voice was hoarse, my throat raw from screaming. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that thing again, its shifting face, the hollow eyes that looked too human to be a nightmare. Mark sat beside me, his arm bandaged where the chain had cut into his skin. He hadn't spoken much since we escaped. The paramedics said he was dehydrated, bruised, and in shock, but physically okay. Emotionally, though, I could tell he was far from fine. His eyes were distant, unfocused, like he was still trapped in that basement. The police searched the house for hours. When they finally came back out, one of the officers shook his head. "There's no one in there," he said. "No sign of a struggle, no sign of forced entry, just dust and old boxes." I wanted to believe him, but I knew what I saw. The chains in the basement were real. The bruises on Mark's wrists were real. And the texts, Emily's messages, were still on my phone. One detective, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, crouched beside me and asked, "You said your friend Emily Parker sent those messages?" I nodded. "Yes, but she's dead." He hesitated, writing something in his notebook. "And how long ago did she pass?" 2 years. He looked up at me then, his brow furrowed in quiet disbelief. "Mrs. Blake, can you show me the messages?" I unlocked my phone and handed it to him. He scrolled through the screen, his expression changing as he read. Then he turned the phone toward me. The text thread was gone, not deleted, completely vanished. It was as if no one had ever messaged me at all. My breath caught. No, they were there. You saw me read them. I showed them to Mark." The detective sighed. "Sometimes after trauma, our minds can play tricks." "No," I shouted, startling even myself. "She saved me. She saved us." Mark reached out, placing a shaking hand on my knee. "She's right," he said quietly. "Something was there. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't human." The detective exchanged a look with the other officers, then gave me back my phone. "We'll file the report," he said gently. "But for now, maybe it's best you stay somewhere else for a few days." That night, Mark and I checked into a small roadside motel about 10 miles from home. The room smelled faintly of bleach and old carpet, but I didn't care. For the first time since the text, I finally felt like I could breathe. Mark fell asleep almost instantly, exhausted. I sat by the window, staring at the highway lights in the distance, thinking about Emily, about all the years we'd shared, the secrets, the laughter, and the guilt I carried after her death. For so long, I'd wished I could talk to her one more time, just to say I was sorry, and somehow, she'd found a way to talk back. I took out my phone again, scrolling through my contacts until I found her name. It was still there, Emily Parker. My thumb hovered over it for a long time. I didn't expect a reply, but I typed anyway. "Thank you. I'll never forget what you did for us." I hit send. The message went through instantly. A few seconds later, a soft chime. My heart skipped. A new message appeared. "Goodbye, Sarah." That was the last time I ever heard from her. The next morning, the police returned to the house. They found evidence that confirmed part of our story. In the basement, behind one of the loose panels, they uncovered old files, boxes filled with Emily's research notes, photos, and a flash drive labeled Construction Case 2019. It turned out the house had once belonged to the same company she had been investigating before her death. The detective later told us that her case was being reopened. The hit and run that killed her was no longer being treated as an accident. When I heard that, I cried for the first time since that night, not out of fear, but relief. Emily's death would finally be investigated properly. Her story wouldn't be forgotten. Mark and I decided not to sell the house, We couldn't go back yet, but we couldn't abandon it either. It wasn't just a place of horror anymore. It was part of the truth. Emily had guided me there for a reason, and even if she was gone, her message still echoed in my mind. Leave now. You're not safe. But now, I understood something deeper. She hadn't just been warning me about danger. She'd been reminding me to trust my instincts, to listen to that small, quiet voice that too many of us ignore until it's too late. Months have passed since that night. Life is slowly returning to something normal, though I don't think it will ever be the same. Some nights I still dream of Emily. Sometimes she's smiling. Other times she's standing in the rain outside the house, watching over us. I don't wake up afraid anymore. I wake up grateful, because now I know that death doesn't always silence the ones who care about us most. Sometimes love refuses to stop fighting, even from the other side. So, if you ever get a message, a sign, or a feeling you can't explain, listen. You may never understand it completely, but sometimes it's the difference between tragedy and survival. Thank you for staying till the end of my story. If it moved you or gave you chills, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more true stories like this, and comment below where you're watching from. Your support means more than you know, and maybe, just maybe, someone out there who needs this message will find it too.